Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing the 2019 horror comedy Snatchers. So, as directed by Steven Cedars and Benji Kleeman. So, this film was kind of something of a curiosity piece for me. I felt like something watching just a little bit different that I hadn't actually got. So I did notice this in the horror section of our local HMV. And for those of you not in the UK, it's pretty much our main chain store for all things music and kind of film related. Its kind of cover stood out and the synopsis on the back of the Blu-ray did kind of make it sound a little bit like a spoof of the likes of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Or even 1998's The Faculty, perhaps. Having never seen it before, I thought that the idea did sound quite interesting, to say the very least. Well, something different it certainly was, although I wouldn't necessarily place the film in the same realm as The Body Snatchers, nor The Faculty. Moreover, I would suggest it's more akin to the likes of to the 2006 movie Slither and 2002's Eight-Legged Freaks. It's more along those lines, being very much a kind of tongue-in-cheek creature feature itself, really. The film is actually based on a 2015 short film and a later 2017 web series featuring the same cast, I do believe, and is technically, I would suppose, an alien invasion movie. But it really kind of doesn't make a big play for that. We are told that the creatures we encounter in the movie are aliens, but really, they could just as easily be some other undiscovered creature from our planet, really. But in that, where they come from isn't all that important to the plot at all of the movie. Not so much, rather than their reproduction cycle. In the movie, we are introduced to Sarah Steinberg, as played by Mary Nepai, a high school student starting a new school year and desperate to stay popular with the in crowd, very much kind of ghosting a geeky friend for many years, Hayley Chamberlain, as played by Gabriella Elise. In the process, Sarah notices something about her ex-boyfriend, Skylar Cole, as played by Austin Freiberger, who's basically shot a couple of spark plugs, if you like. He's recently returned from Mexico, all buff and tanned, and instantly Sarah feels drawn to him. That same night, they end up having unprotected sex, much to the stupidity and naivety of them both. But the ramifications are far worse than any STD. Sarah wakes the next morning to find out that over the course of the day that she is in fact pregnant. The next morning after that, she awakes to find she's fit to burst, being pretty much the equivalent of 9 months gone. Sarah, understandably very worried, seeks advice from Hayley and soon after gives birth to two monstrous, vicious and devilish looking creatures that are hell-bent on using the town's horny teens to multiply and infest the earth. Blood and carnage do ensue, leaving only our two unlikely heroes to rekindle their friendship, weapon up and formulate one cunning plan to stop the creatures before it's too late. So, okay, this film is quite quirky, to say the very least. It isn't groundbreaking, and certainly borrows nearly all of its elements from other movies in the horror and sci-fi genres, parodying quite a few in a number of very subtle ways, quite often. The special effects, they do leave a little to be desired. The creatures aren't that menacing, all told, and really don't do very much on camera. But in the film's defence, given its overall kind of tongue-in-cheek tone, I kind of would believe that that is kind of the effect that it was meant to be, that's what they were aiming for. And in that, it really does allow for the film's fun feel to kind of follow through. The film does use a lot of practical effects, though, and in that, I do think that's something that at least deserves to be praised. However, in saying that, it is the characters and the dialogue that really make this film. It is fresh, it is funny, and it is very punchy. The dialogue and the interaction between the characters does move at a fairly brisk pace, most of which is undertaken in text speak, if you like, using abbreviations and acronyms for pretty much every situation. At times, I must admit, it was quite hard to understand. I thought they were kind of trying to do the alphabet backwards. I mean, many of you will realise, but I haven't just realised how to do a smiley face with a colon and a bracket. But I must admit, it does actually give the film kind of an interesting slant that I wasn't expecting, and it does challenge you to keep up with it. It's almost, if I think about it, what you would actually get if you took the Gilmore Girls, which are famous for their, really speedy speech, and instead of loading them with coffee all day, which is their favourite beverage, it was Jack Daniels instead. That kind of speed, that kind of feel. It certainly had an interesting vibe at the very least, and I will say that I think all the actors did kind of a fantastic job of bringing their respective characters to life, especially the two leads, who were just tremendous together on screen. The story, all told, it's fairly average. The plot, fairly basic in its execution, having been done many times before. But that isn't, again, where this movie draws its strengths. Again, the comedy is sometimes dry, subtle. Sometimes, yes, it's even a bit more evident. But overall, it is driven by its context and dialogue. I mean, the title pretty much tells you all you're probably going to need to know about this film, being a reference both to the film and other things on a number of levels. It's not just the body snatchers premise that this kind of film draws its name from. So in that, the film is quite sexually charged. It is certainly one of its main themes, but it does it with an almost kind of realistic approach, without being too vulgar, nor resorting to nudity or exhibitionism at all. It has its moments, but for the most part, keeps it on the level. In terms of the horror, it did rely pretty much on jump scares all the way through. But again, you did kind of get the feeling that this was a deliberate nod to the genre in general, not kind of any serious take on itself. There was never any kind of sense of anticipation, as they made absolutely sure by ramping up the music to the usual deathly tones that we were about to get shocked, which ultimately did not result in any shock whatsoever, even if but deliberately so. Overall, this was certainly a quirky film, with some very interesting and fast-paced dialogue. It was punchy throughout, which did keep your attention, and overall was quite cleverly constructed, in my opinion. It's the kind of film that I think that will get relegated for a while, and then will kind of most likely resurface as a cult gem, perhaps. It borrows from many other films in the genre, but ultimately still feels unique enough to have its kind of own individual charm and charisma. It perhaps doesn't have enough to rival other creature feature movies, kind of such as 1984's Gremlins or 1986's Critters, for example. It's not on a par with them, but as a comedy in a subgenre, it does have its own style, which is definitely worth a visit. If you do like movies such as Slither and Eight-Legged Freaks, then I think you will certainly love this movie. If not, then you might want to give it a miss. as I think it's going to be quite an acquired taste overall, to be quite fair. But overall, I do like both of those movies in their own way. I do feel that Snatchers, it's a more educated offering, perhaps, than those two movies in terms of its comedy and its dialogue. So, it could be worth a go on that basis alone if you are unsure. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. We have loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk and would certainly love to have you back. But most of all, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.